Introducing AfricanBizNet.com, a common place to buy or sell, post free, or feature your ad with magnified pictures. With integrated maps, weekly blogs on local and international people and events, visit us at www.africanbiznet.com, your African marketplace.
Welcome to another edition of Just Landed, discussing what matters to you and celebrating your culture and contributions. Today we're going to be talking about culture shock. Culture shock is one of those feelings, and by definition it's an effect that happens when you move into a new country and everything is totally new to you. So we're going to discuss the different stages of culture shock. And just so you understand what culture shock means, it's that feeling when you come in and you settle down. First you're excited. It's a new country, your fun times are here. You're exploring, you're happy to just engage everything everywhere. But then after a while you understand that you need to settle down. And when you start to deal with the issues of everyday life, like the transportation, housing issues, settling the kids into school, it becomes overwhelming. And this is where we want to help you understand how you can deal with culture shock. There are definitely stages, and I'll say there's 4 stages. You have the fun stage, kind of like the honeymoon stage where you're all excited, and then you end up with your fight stage, and that's where I'm saying you're dealing with issues with settling down. It's becoming overwhelming for you, and so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. The next stage is the flight. For some of us who find that we can't take it, we end up leaving and forgetting all those goals and dreams that we had. So just so that you hang in there, we want to help you understand the resources available. Today on the show, I'm going to be joined with a very wonderful lady. She's a social worker by background. She's a mother of 5, and she's from Africa, just like all of us are listening today. We want you to understand that there's help, there's support, and we're going to be discussing with her today. So she is Alwia Mohammed, and I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you, Khadija.
All right, so how are you today?
Well,
And how is the culture? How is our system? How is our community? As a social worker, tell us the feeling out there. Like,
after 23 years of living in this country, so I have adjusted to the culture of this society.
for sure.
Compared to when I just first came to this country, that was when I was still in my teenage years. So it's much better as it progresses during the years.
Compared to someone who's just coming, for
Yes,
sure.
of course.
So I was just telling our audience, we're going to talk about culture shock and how we can adjust to it. And from your experience, you've done that, and you've pretty much got to the point where you fitted in. You're a Canadian, you're fully Canadian, you fitted in. Usually we come in and it's the fun stage, it's then the fight stage, and then we kind of have to flee or agree to fit. So you're at that fit stage, and you've been through all those stages. For people like us who've come through this, we want to share with you from our experience how that really helps if you understand what you're going through. Because again, with your, a bit of psychology, you understand that people don't sometimes even know what they're going through. It becomes kind of like,
it's quite different for everybody. I think for those who are coming when they're still young and those who are older, much older with children, it progresses different. The ones who come here with no children, like if we just move in, like for me, for instance, when I just came, I was by myself. And it differs to everybody. Those who have a choice to come in, like those who left their home willingly to come, and there are those who had no choice.
Yes.
So it varies. For my situation, my experience when I came here was because of I was married. I came here as an arranged marriage, so that's different.
Okay.
So somehow it's like I didn't have any choice. So I came here. I was still young. The honeymoon phase for me lasted only a week.
And most people will tell you that, yes, especially if in your case your situation was a bit different.
Yes.
A lot of people come in as Canadians offering the skilled worker program and the opportunity to come and live in Canada. Most people are coming when they're already settled in as families elsewhere.
Yes.
So they come with young kids most of the time, and sometimes they come with teenage kids. So in your experience, what do you see for these different levels for after the fun stage is over, when they've all kind of settled in, happy, they found a new place to stay, but then what is that reality?
For most of the people I've met during my placement years, when I was doing a placement in the Employment Service Agency, I had like a family coming in with who most of the issue is financial. We have people coming with their skills looking for work, and the shock they come to this country realizing the job which they were qualified to do in the previous country, they are not able to work in this country.
Yes.
That's a shock due to the fact that they cannot
assimilate right away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Apart from assimilation is the qualification, what are required in this country, the employment, the job opportunity is different from where you're coming from. If
Yeah.
let's say like a doctor, you're coming from a country where you're a doctor, there is no way in this country. There is a way, but it's a huge process. Going back to school.
Going back to school, recertifying, and
Yes.
trying to get the job again.
Which is take time and financial,
Yes.
which most of the new migrant people.
And I think most of the stress comes from the financial stress.
That's
because, again, when you start to fight, that's because you're not able to meet up certain things. Your expectations are high, and then your results are low. You start to question yourself. Did I make the right decision? Did I make a mistake to make my whole family come? Perhaps I should have come first. A lot of men and women have this conversation, and when it comes to the kids, there might be a little bit of solace because you know your kids can go into school right away.
Yes.
But then you find you need to support them. You have to buy the clothes, the weather's change on you. It's almost like all of a sudden you didn't bargain for this. And what I say to a lot of people is if you're just arrived maybe to visit and maybe you've just landed and perhaps you're still a resident, I highly recommend taking a look at the situation and giving yourself a chance to perhaps take a step back and see if it's something that you can really fully engage the whole family. Because I know a few parents come in and they look around and they settle in the kids, and then one person tries to kind of take it slower before they arrive, and some people like me, we just jumped in and came right into it. So the financial aspect of settling into a new country is definitely the strain that most people have. But what other strains do you see?
Most of the time, some of them who come here, they miss their home a lot, like their family, social support,
Yes.
lack of support in the community. They feel like they have left their home, family, they maybe just husband and wife and kids.
And missing family,
Extended
and
family,
friends
extended
back home.
family, yeah. And we all, some of them have issues of lack of integrating within the community.
Yeah, it's a new community.
For feeling the sense of it's a different source of, different culture, different background, different community.
And sometimes it's hard to find your immediate circle where you can feel comfortable.
Exactly.
So what resources do we have to help people who've just arrived to know that these resources perhaps are available, and maybe even their communities have little, meetings or sessions? How do people come in and actually find this out?
That's a good question. There's so many resources available for new immigrant. It's up to you as an immigrant who came into this country to make those choices and take an effort to make, you can Google and find what resources are available for new immigrants. Then settlement, new settlement area, new settlement resources,
Agencies, and
employment service agencies. They have multicultural agencies, meaning for Muslim people, they have community which help Muslims within their community.
Yeah. And I know that the region of Peel, if you're coming in as a newcomer and you're coming to the region of Peel, we do have programs where you can go to the region of Peel and they can actually give you a booklet that includes a whole list of organizations and support groups that can be of assistance.
Yes.
So for sure, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the fitting stage, where we definitely have embraced the culture. We have appreciated what Canada has got to offer. When we come back, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This show is supported by local businesses.
All right, so welcome back. We've been talking with Alwiya Mohammed, and we've definitely had a wonderful conversation going over our culture shock that we experience as newcomers in this country. When you come in as a newcomer, you go through your different stages. We've talked about the fun stage where we all have fun to settle in. We talked about the fight stage. And a lot of times we have different challenges, financial, mobility challenges, language barriers, a lot of things that come your way that hit you and you really feel overwhelmed. So we've kind of gone through that. But I'm going to give her a chance to share her personal side of her story, her culture, her experience, and also her overcoming every single stage that we've talked about. So as we talk about, the choice to whether flee, abandon your dreams of coming to Canada or stay, I'll have Aliyah talk about what she feels and how she's been able to overcome it. Because as a mother of 5 who went back to school, as a social worker, experiencing the community and understanding what people are going through, she perhaps maybe influence, some decisions that you're about to make and maybe inspire you to just have hope and stay. So hold on one moment. We'll take Aliyah on and we'll listen to her very carefully. All right?
The experience that I've had during me coming to Canada, like I said earlier before, I had no choices. But the thing is, it's a wonderful opportunity. I feel like it's a country with lots of opportunity for women like me, women who are minority, women who have come from countries where they are not allowed. They have so many barriers. Once I landed in this country, I have gone through all those stages of culture shock, having honeymoon phase, and then flight phase, but with all the barriers I've encountered, I've managed to bring down all those barriers. I have made choices, so many difficult choices and decisions during
during your journey.
During my journey, like I've made choices to stay home. That was my choice. Having 5 children is a difficult journey. Putting them, it's difficult financially putting them through daycare. It's a lot of burden for a parent. So I made decision to stay home. But I would have loved to go to school earlier than now. But I stayed home, and my youngest daughter, she's 7 years old now. So I made a choice of going to school after the fact.
Awesome.
Yeah, when she's full-time. So
when she became full-time.
Yeah, those are the choices. So I've managed to make good decision, meaning like instead of paying daycare for my children, I stayed home. But in the meantime, there were so many other opportunities while I was at home doing. I did catering, I did daycare to support my family, helping my family financially. So
that was awesome, because sometimes people don't realize they have some silent skills that you could use in Canada to support your family.
Yes.
Beautifully said. You had some maybe talent in cooking. You harnessed that. You had the opportunity to take other people's kids on, and you created a little bit of that income to support your family. And I want a lot of people listening today to know that you don't always have to come and delve in directly. Part of that fight stage is trying to figure out where you fit in, what you can do to make it happen for you. And for so many ladies, especially coming from Africa, we have a lot of skills. The skills from cooking to cleaning, to sewing, to babysitting. It comes naturally to us because this is the role that we're born into, most likely. When you come here, you can take that and polish that. You offer it to friends. From friends, you get referrals. You can actually start your own little business that way. A lot of people are doing it and finding pride in owning their own businesses, having time for the kids during the day, and then getting into the society. So in your case, when you talk about your other peers, your community, your friends, other people that you see go through this, is it something that is encouraged? Is it embraced? How are people actually
I think it's something should be encouraged for women, meaning like my experience during my employments, working in an employment service agency, I have newcomers who just come in, and during my meeting they say, we are looking for work. What happened? Lack of experience. We don't have Canadian experience. That's the most issue. Lack of Canadian experience. But you can do volunteer. You can volunteer to gain the experience. So you are affordable. I mean, you are available for the market.
Yes.
So having the process of going volunteering, having the process of meeting other peers in the community, having the process of networking enables you to find work in Canada. So those are
the things you did take advantage of.
Yes, yes. Those are the things which people need to do more research on as a newcomer, to embrace that. If you stay home, as a new immigrant, you lose you lose lack of sense of knowing what's going on.
You isolate yourself.
Exactly.
You isolate yourself. You get into that world where you're alone. You're lonely. You don't know. And I'm very happy that you brought up the volunteering, because for me, volunteering was the segue. It was the only opportunity I had, and I embraced it. And for some of us who did, we see how easily we've connected and we've integrated into the community. If you're just landing and you have no option right now, perhaps you want to refine your skills. You want to go back to school to get some little additional certifications or qualifications.
Yes.
Volunteering. And if you're like me, who did your research before you even came into Canada, I heard that you have to work without pay for a little bit to get to get a job. So for you, if you're coming in and you haven't heard that, the honest truth is volunteering will get you into the world of networking. It will help you assimilate. It will integrate you with others going through the same thing. And through volunteering, you can find your niche. You can find the love for whatever you want. And volunteering happens from close to home to far away from home, to from simple, supporting kids' meals from school, to going into a corporate office to overlook someone. So really, you need to do your research, because that opportunity exists for you. But again, we're going to talk about something else in another segment, and it's where we talk about the racism factor. And we're not going to leave this conversation without bringing that in, because for our community, coming in and trying to fit in and integrate, a few will come across what they feel or sense as racism. So we'll come back in the next segment to talk about that.
Introducing AfricanBizNet.com, a common place to buy or sell, post free, or feature your ad with magnified pictures. With integrated maps, weekly blogs on local and international people and events, visit us at www.africanbiznet.com, your African marketplace.
This show is supported by local businesses.
We'll be talking about racism in Canada. Racism in Canada has its own story, and for some of us, we've learned how from the time where we talked residential schools for the Aboriginal people, to the Chinese tax, and the high, profile bravery of Canadians for the Underground Railroad. We have a lot of stories that tie us back to communities that have long complained of segregation and racism in Canada. Today we want to talk about our diverse community and what we actually experience as racism. Coming from the African continent, of course, racism has primarily been Black versus Caucasian, but as Canadian society continues to diversify itself, we do have several ways and several perceptions of racism. So we don't want to pretend it doesn't exist in Canada, because it does. And recently, when we hear news from the United States, highlight the certain glaring racism they have in their society, where the killings of the recent young men have really caused outrage in the media. But we want to bring it back home and talk about our form of racism, our type of racism, and how, if you've experienced it or not, recognized it, you perhaps want to be able to speak out against it and help maybe draw attention to it, because sometimes in Canada we really don't talk about this racism. And we're going to be sharing the same story with our guest from last week, Alwiya Mohammed. Personally, as a Muslim Canadian and an African, we do have our form of racism that we feel we've experienced. But just so we don't generalize it, have you personally had an experience?
This recent experience I've had, which is very, very an experience where I'm just crossing a border, which I've done normally for many, many years, going shopping to US, which is most of Canadians, we do that.
Yes.
Crossing the border to go shopping. But the recent experience which I had was being questioned out of 4 people in the car based upon my appearance wearing the hijab. So the profile right now, which most US officer
for the Muslim
for the
Canadians,
Muslim, yeah,
not
more
Muslim,
of
the Black Canadians.
more Black Canadian, being the stigma is the terrorist.
For sure, there's a stigma.
Yeah, that's the
there's a
profile.
fear
Yeah, the profile
in
is.
society.
So my thought was, I'm just going for one day shopping, and with all these people in the car, why am I questioned as to why I'm crossing the border?
Well, that's one of the reasons I want us to talk about this, because that form of in that sense, racism that you felt, more of a discrimination between you and the others in the car, is sometimes seen as a racial factor. And in my opinion, I think that is more of a discriminatory feeling that you get when you're being singled out. And we must appreciate and recognize where that has come from. Since 9/11, we know that we have, as a general community, Muslims had that more of, it's more of, there's that discrimination for sure, and for just cause in some people's mind, especially in the security and the authorities. But when it comes to the, hidden silent racism, where you apply to a job, if you have 10 resumes that show Han and Abdul and Mohammed and John Smith, obviously John Smith is going to perhaps get that job, is what we're saying. Because there was a study done in 2012, like Simon Fraser University conducted a study, and they pretty much just did this resume sampling, and they found that 18% of minorities will actually earn less than the regular Caucasian community, and we still have that. And so sometimes when we hear a lot about racism down there, I haven't personally felt any racism towards me, and I say sometimes because I choose not to recognize it maybe, but my child has. My child went for swimming, and that was a shocker for me, because in the swimming recreational center environment, kids from even the Asian community discriminate against my young black son by saying he doesn't belong here, this is not for you, and segregating him in a way that makes him feel like he doesn't belong here because they were a group of them. So that is an experience that I've had, that my son comes home to say, Mommy, someone was racist to me today, and they told me that I couldn't climb up to the slide because he doesn't belong there. And we have kids telling us these stories from the parks and from school, but I'm not sure we are giving the attention to that so much, so we recognize that it is actually helping to spread, the racism in our kids, because it comes from home. And if our children are exploring that option when they're in parks and in the community, it started from someone's home. So in my opinion, racism in Canada goes different ways. It's not just black to white or white to black. It's also our Asians experiencing it, and also, creating that reflection of themselves on others. So I think in the Canadian system, we do need to recognize that there's racism, but in our context, it's more of the Islamic discrimination, like you're focusing on, right? Because as Muslims now, it's gone beyond not just our skin color, it's actually what you believe in. And I know there's a recent study.
Going to a break.
Oh, okay. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about how recently this whole religious discrimination has become one of the most sensitive ways to feel that racism factor. So stay with us, we'll be right back. Okay, so we're taking a deep look into the racism topic here. Racism versus maybe more of a discriminatory feeling that we feel as Muslims. We feel a certain kind of discrimination, and it goes along with a little bit of racism for some people. And I personally said, perhaps I'm neutral to racism. Maybe I don't expect it to happen, and that's why maybe it hasn't happened glaringly to me. But I know it exists, and a lot of people in our communities, minority communities, experience this racism. So we're going to be talking to Alweer again, talking about if you've experienced racism personally, what do you feel is happening?
An experience which I had when looking for work, I had to remove my hijab and going for interviews, job interview, and then after, maybe because there's a period of for 3 months, a period where I have to work for me in order to secure my job. I had to not to wear my hijab.
You were told not to?
No, I wasn't told not
Okay.
to, but I felt like I had to do that to make myself comfortable in that.
That's how deep it felt for you, the
Yes.
discrimination there.
Yes.
Wow, that is interesting. But what about the immediate reaction that we get? Like you line up for something or you go get something. Do you have that experience, or do you know people who have had that experience?
Like next and kind of help you. She was more polite to the Caucasian than to me. And
Even
for-
though you're a woman and you're in hijab, you're
yeah.
supposed to look more toned down, and it's the perception, I think.
Yeah.
And this is where we say that perception. But again, when it comes to the way that we react, we don't necessarily expect it when it happens. And did you expect it when it happened?
I didn't expect that going to buy coffee and somebody.
So how did you react?
Most of the time, I think with racism, you have to look at yourself and see, do I need to encourage it?
Exactly.
Yeah, or you need to be polite and to say it nicely and saying it like what I would usually in that situation, I'll say, I was the next customer, and
So, did you
and
say
thank you very
anything?
much for your service. I kind of be more polite.
Okay. Because a lot of Canadians that we believe are racist towards us don't know anything about us. They don't have no clue where we're coming from. They just hear whatever they hear in the media and they form their own perceptions. And I believe as a new immigrant, you eventually become a citizen, but embrace your heritage, and when you're asked where you're from, be proud to connect it to your heritage. Because sometimes when people ask, they assume you're Canadian, they just kind of want to connect with you at a different level. And if you come up forthrightly with it, I feel like you become neutral to racism because you're not expecting it much. And because we're such a diverse community, I believe that could go a long way in helping to both educate community and make you proud to stand for your community, because you stand for right. You stand for, good stuff. You want to be proud of that and you want to relate it to your heritage. So when someone sees the next person who's Muslim Kenyan, they're not going to feel, oh, because I had a conversation with a Canadian the other day, and she was very much, against what happened, and I understand that it's not religion, it's not taught, and that way we are able to help educate community. Don't you think?
Yes, that's true.
Because that's what I'm trying to get out of all of this. The conversation is racism in Canada, yes. But when we begin to understand where we all come from and how we can all relate with each other, I believe the stereotyping, the discrimination, the understanding is better. Canada is a diverse country. We need to embrace our diversity and celebrate it. And that's a step forward to understanding community and creating that unity so that the racism factor that exists can be almost eliminated. So thank you for watching another edition of Just Landed. I hope this show will perhaps get you thinking.
I think the show was really great. It was really intuitive. It's really great to know what's happening in the African community and like different resources and